Carl Rogers and the Theory of Self-Actualization by Jessica Brooks, Kinder Patton, and Sylvia Welch. Carl Rogers was born January 8, 1902 in Oak Park, Illinois. Oak Park is a suburb area of Chicago, and he was the fourth child out of 6. He has 2 older brothers, a sister, and 2 younger brothers. He held a close relationship with his mother. His mother and his older brothers and sisters taught him how to read at about age 4. Walter A. Rogers, Carl Rogers' father, was a civil engineer, and his mother, Julia M. Cushing, was a homemaker. Carl Rogers' parents held strict religious views. They emphasized moral behavior, suppressed the displays of emotion, and encouraged him to be a hard worker. Their views forced him to live by someone else's views other than making his own. They were really good parents, and just because they had a different way of life doesn't mean that they were abusive. They were subtle and loving in the way that they promoted their way of life. Teen years. At the age of 12, his family moved to a rural 300-acre farm 30 miles from Chicago. This is where he became interested in science and farming. He observed, captured, and bred moths, and also began reading about farming and agriculture. At the same time, his emotional state became unstable. He had fantasies that he was glad a psychologist never got to study. College years. Carl Rogers went to study agriculture at the University of Wisconsin until his sophomore year. He became interested in ministry then, and during this time, this is what freed him of his parents' ways and changed him from fundamentalist to liberal. He traveled for 6 months to China and developed opinion of self-actualization. This caused stress, which they think might have caused ulcers and hospitalization. He then had to return for a year to the family farm for recuperation. Carl Rogers held many degrees. In 1924, he completed his bachelor's at the University of Wisconsin. He then went to marry his childhood friend Helen Elliott. They moved to New York City, where he enrolled in the Union Theological Seminary. After 2 years, he transferred to the Columbia University Teachers College. In 1928, he got his master's at Columbia University, and in 1931, he got his PhD there in psychotherapy. In 1940, he began teaching at the University of Ohio, and in 1946, he was elected president of the American Psychological Association. In 1951, he published The Client-Centered Therapy, and then in 1961, he published On Becoming a Person. In 1980, he published A Way of Being. In 1987, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1987, Carl Rogers died of a heart attack in San Diego, California. He was known as the father of client-centered therapy. He said, "Not growing old, but old and growing," and "The good life is a process, not a state of being. It is a direction, not a destination." Some influences on Carl Rogers' theory. Carl Rogers had really religious parents. They believed in no dancing, no playing cards, no movies, no smoking, no drinking, and no sexual interests. He believed his parents showed favoritism to an older brother. This led to lots of reading and loneliness. He also had fantasies around age 12 that even he thought were bizarre and might have classified him as a schizoid. He then traveled to Beijing, China, where his opinion that all humans should rely on their experiences, ideas, and beliefs was created. The theory of self-actualization. Carl Rogers began developing this theory while working with abused children. He attempted to change the world of psychotherapy. He claimed that psychoanalytic, experimental, and behavioral therapists were inhibiting clients from reaching self-realization and self-growth. He believed that each person has the innate tendency to continue to grow and develop, and that basic human motivation is to actualize, maintain, and enhance the self. But this can only be achieved through unconditional positive regard, which is where one approves granted regardless of a person's behavior. Impact on psychology. Carl Rogers is known as the father of client-centered therapy. All of Rogers' theories and principles combined are known as humanistic psychology. A quote from Carl Rogers: "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change."